Hi, Leroy here. Today we're talking about quantization. We're going to go off on a little bit of tangents here to talk about some more things in depth on the Verselab, make sure we understand what's going on. But right now, let's just start a brand new project. We're at new song. This is just the default project. Let's go ahead and go to the sequence part of the workflow. And we're going to use in this the hi-hat and instrument 1. So just to start, as some precursor, let's go to instrument 1 and we're going to select a sound that's going to work to help us with these examples later. So I've selected instrument 1, and hit the value knob. I'm going to go to preset, mallet. I've found a good sound that'll help us already. We're going to scroll onto the category of mallet, and in mallet we're going to look for pop tropical mallet. Sounds like this. All right, it has a very, very sharp attack and no sustain, which is going to help us hear how quantization is working. So before we start, we should look at a couple of different things. First of all, we're on instrument 1 in the mallets. We're going to look at how polyphony works. So this sound is a polyphonic sound, which means you can play more than one sound at a time. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go to edit and hit the first step right here. And we're just going to add some notes. Each of these is adding a note. And depending on how the sound is designed, how many partials there are, how complicated it is, you can have up to 16 notes at a time. And one thing that's good about this sound is it's simple, so you can't have all 16. So now look, we're going to exit. We're going to again go to edit and step. And notice up here it says 1 for the number. That's the note number. We can scroll with the first knob here, and we can see all of the notes. Notice there are 16 notes now in there, right? And if we play it, oh, that's terrible. It just plays all 16 notes at the same time. But what happens if we play more than 16 notes? So we're still in edit mode here. What happens if we say shift the octave, right? Hold down shift over here, and then hit the octave plus down here, right? See the little box, right? Shift, octave plus, and just here's the top of the last, the notes we had in there. Let's add another note. Oh, it added. Seems fine, right? But look, if we scroll in here, there's still just 16 notes. So what happened to the other note? There were 16 before. Go back down to the octave we were in. Notice it removed this. It puts them in the order you put them in, and then removes them in that order. So we had 16. We went this way, right? So this is the first note we put in. So we put in a note that's more than we can have. We put in the 17th note. It removed this note. So say we wanted to add this note back. It's going to remove the next note we put in, the earliest note. So you remove this one. But if we go up an octave, we can see this note is still there, because it was the last note we'd put in. So until we'd gotten through all of these, this note's going to remain. We can still turn it off manually if we wanted to, right? Anyway, so we can only have 16 individual notes. But let's exit out of here. We're going to clear this step. Just turn it off there. There is a caveat. It's 16 different notes. And this is per step. Each step can have 16 different notes, but not the same note. If you try and play the same note more than once, it's going to keep 1. It'll keep 1 of that note per step. Watch. Let's record. We're just going to play a bunch of notes. Now look what happened. Look at these steps. Oops, turn record off. Right? It's playing 1 note. I played a bunch of notes. I was just hitting this over and over. But if you look at this, if you edit the step, it's just playing 1 note. There's only 1 note. Same with this next step. 1 note. 1 note. Because each step can only hold 1 of each note. That's the same thing. Let's exit out of here, clear these steps. That's the same with rhythm. So in a kit track, it sees each of these pads. Each of these pads it sees internally as a specific note. You could play these on a MIDI controller, on a keyboard, because each of them is a note. And again, per step, on each step, you can only have 1 note at a time. So if you wanted to do something like hi-hat ratchets, right? Like D, 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 right? You can't put more than 1 note on a step, or it'll just keep 1 note. We'll try it again, watch. Look, if we edit the steps, there's only going to be 1 note per step. Well, the kit track works a little different, but there's only 1 note per step. So all this that I was doing, right? It's only going to be 1 note per step. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4. It plays 4 notes. That's it. Again, we need to keep that in mind because that's going to be useful in the future when talking about quantization. That's the entire reason, by the way, why if you go into edit a step, you have this sub option. This is sub-step divisions. This is what allows you to do ratchets. So listen, right? Well, let's put a couple steps on here, and we'll ratchet it up as we go. We'll just put some steps on here. Now, we'll go to edit. We'll set the sub here to off, half, third, quarter, right? So we'll just ratchet it up like that. Now listen. That's how they expect you to do things like that, where you want more than one step or more than one division per step. You could also change the scale, the step scale to, from 16th notes to 32nd notes, etc. Although there's an error with 32nd notes, they don't actually work. Check out my video below about the 32nd note error. But you could also up the tempo, right? If the tempo were faster, each of these steps will come faster. There are workarounds, but in general, and this is important for quantization, each step can only have one note. Okay, now let's do some setups so we can hear what's happening with quantization and how that works. Before we do that, let's look at input quantize. We're going to stay on the kit for now. So what does input quantize do? That's the first step we need to look at. So to get to some of the quantize options, you hold down shift and hit section select. Notice under it has a little square and it says quantize. I think you can see that. So hold down shift, section select, that's your quantize menu. Input quantize, I don't know if it's on or off by default, but let's turn it on for now and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and slow down the tempo just so I can make sure and get these things, off beat. I'm going to play this off beat now, okay? So we're going to play this. I'm going to have the kick here on the beats, or excuse me, on the steps. Okay, the kicks are coming on the step. I'm going to play this hi-hat off the step, right? I'm going to play it off step, and watch what happens. So I was playing off step. I was not playing on the grid, but now look, it's playing it on the grid. If we edit the step and we look up here, it shows the notes and the length. If we use the value knob to scroll over, this little arrow means we can scroll over. Notice the STA is 0. STA is the start of the note on the step. If it says 0, it means it starts right when the step starts. Internally, this thing is counting on every step. It's counting from 0 to 100, or 0 to 99. And when it gets past 99, it's the next step. So 0 is exactly when it starts on a step. Notice each of these is at 0, right? I did not play them on the steps. So let's try that again. Let's exit out of here. Let's turn input quantize off and try that again. All right, now listen, and you're going to hear that these are not on the steps. The kick drum is on the steps. This is going to be off the step, right? Beach, beach, beach. It's off. And if you edit the step, you can see the starting point on this one is 37 out of 100, right? It's off. It's like a third of a step off. This one's 29. This one's -5. -5 means it comes before the step. So by input quantize, what it does is it takes the note that you play when you play it, and it pushes it back to 0 of whatever step it's in. So if you're playing it, 99%, you're almost at the next step, it's going to push it back to 0. It's going to be at the beginning of that step. It makes it so it's on the grid. And what's interesting about this is say you're terrible at rhythm, right? You can't stay on rhythm to save your life. What if you want, we're going to up the tempo a bit so we don't have to wait so long. What if you just want to play something live or something, right? You want it to be on the grid, these drums. You can turn input quantize on, shift, section select, turn this on, and then you can start recording. Now, I was not directly on. I was a little bit off of the grid on that, but notice these look okay. And if we go to edit, again, they're right on the grid. They're at 0. So these are perfectly straight. So you could set up your drum to be perfectly straight. Well, let's try this again. We'll do another recording. Right? We can go back and do the hi-hats if we want. Turn off record. All of these things now are directly on the grid. Even if I was a little bit off, they're directly on the grid. Now, if we want, we could turn input quantize off. Then we can go back and like play these hi-hats off the grid, for instance, like. Now, that's not anything musically you would want to use, but notice that all of these hi-hats, they're going to be off the grid however I played them. One note per step, sure, but however I played them, they're going to be off the grid. Okay? With me so far? Input quantize is unreversible. If you use input quantize, it's going to move everything to 0 and save that in your sequence, so you can't go back to what you had. It alters permanently whatever you've played to put it on the grid. That's important to know. So let's now look into Quantize and see what other options we have besides input quantize. We're turning input quantize off at this point. Let me exit out of here. We're turning input quantize off. Make sure that's off for this next portion. We're also going to go to the kit. We're going to just hold clear and push sequence. That'll clear all of the steps from the kit track. Oh, I'm in velocity. There we go. So now all of these are now cleared in the kit track. We're not going to use that. We're going to use the hi-hat and instrument 1. Again, instrument 1 is this pop tropical mallet. We're going to do a little bit of groundwork to make this easier to understand. So first, in hi-hat, hold down, go to edit and then note. No, sorry, wrong one. Go to edit and then measure plus down here. We're going to set the step length to 2. And then scroll down in here and set the scale to 1/8. This is going to make it easier for us to see what's happening. And then just hit exit. Next, go to instrument 1 and do the same thing. Edit, measure, scale 1/8. And we're going to set the step length to 2. All right, why did we do that? Here's why. Let's set the hi-hat. We're also going to set the tempo down all the way to 40, just to make it easier to see what's happening. So we're in the hi-hat. We're going to just put a hi-hat on each of these 2 steps that we have. That's it. They're directly on the beat. This is going to act like a metronome to us so we can hear what's happening with these steps, okay? Now, on the instrument 1 track, pop tropical mallet, very, very percussive, we're just going to put a single step. Just select a pad you want. Whatever pad you select is what's going to be on if you just hit the step sequencer. We'll just do this pad. Right? It's right on. It's on this first step. Boom, 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 right? It's directly on the beat. And if you edit the step, you'll notice at the start, again, you can scroll this with the value knob if it's not on the right screen. It's at 0. It inserts it in directly at 0. So what if we change this? Let's change it. Change it to 50. It'll be right in the middle of the beat. Doom, right? You're hearing 3 different tones. You're hearing the hi-hat, then the tone, then the second hi-hat. Here are the hi-hats. Now listen to the mallet. Doom, 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 right? So right now the mallet is coming off of the step. The hi-hats are directly on the step and it's coming halfway in between. Let's move this up even further. Move it to 99, as high as we can go. Now it sounds like it's almost coming right on this step, right? It's so close. We can't tell that that's not on this next step, but it is. It's within the first step. It's 99/100ths away on this step, all the way to the edge of this first step. So it sounds like it's here, but it's not. And we can do the same thing in the opposite direction, minus. We can do this to -50, and that'll play it halfway before the step. So it's going to play halfway, into this step. Shh, boom, boom. Got it? Understand? Okay, this is important. So now look, let's put this halfway into the first step. So it's still on the first step, right? Still here, but we're going to put that note in the middle of this step, right in the middle of the step. So it's going to go ch, boom, ch, right? The boom is going to be our mallet sound, right? It's going to go halfway between. You're going to hear 3 separate sounds: the hi-hat, the mallet, and then the hi-hat again. Right, no problem. We understand how this is working, I think. So now, go to the Quantize menu by holding Shift and hitting the section select, which is Quantize, and scroll down. We're not going to input Quantize. We're going to scroll down to Quantize Master. Okay, turn this up to 100%. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Let's listen. Let's listen and see if we can hear what's happening. Okay, this mallet is coming right on the beat. It's coming exactly with the hi-hat. So it's moved that to basically to 0. If you go to edit and look at this, it still says it's at 50. It saved what it was actually played at. Imagine you're playing off the beat, right? It's saving where it was inputted in, but in real time, it's moving it back to 0. It's moving it to the front of that step directly on the grid. And what's great about this is it's not permanent. It's saving all the data you put in, how you played it, and you can turn it off. So in real time, we'll go to Quantize again, the Quantize menu, and we're playing it. Now watch, as I turn this down, watch what happens. Now we hear 3 distinct tones. We hear a hi-hat, the mallet, and then another hi-hat. Doom, doom, right? If we turn it back up to 100%, it's going to play it right on the step, right on the beat. Boom, boom. And what's good about this is it's a percentage, so you don't have to have it directly on the beat. It divides up how far you are from 0 into 100 chunks. So as you're moving this down, it's going to be closer and closer to what you originally played it at. At 0, right now, at 0, this is going to be at 50. The starting point of this is going to be halfway between the beat. And at 100, this is going to be at 0. Everything in between is between those things. So watch as we adjust it in real time, listen to how that changes things. So this is off. It's going to be halfway between these 2 steps. See that? It's amazing because we can select exactly how far on the grid we want it to be. We can make it sound more accurate without being completely robotic and on the grid, which is amazing. And again, this does not change permanently your file. The notes you played are still saved exactly as you played them, and that is incredible. It's very useful. So for now, let's look at something else. There's one more option you can use to do Quantize. We're going to turn Quantize here off and then exit this menu. Now we're on this track, instrument 1, the mallet track. So we're in note mode, in sequence workflow. Let's go to section select. Section select. This is how you select a clip, right? We're in clip 1 right now. We're just doing section 1. So this is the first clip. Edit, hit the section you want to edit, the clip you want to edit, and go to clip setting. Okay, this is the setting just for this clip. And again, remember the clip is just the MIDI and the instrument information for this specific track, right? So this is going to be saving the mallet information and the MIDI information we put in. That's it, just for this one instrument. So if we scroll down, scroll, we have this option, Quantize C tight. What is that? What is C? C is clip. This is the option just for the clip. That's it, just the clip. So we can say, leave the settings off for everything else. We're like, we want the drum to be as we played it, but we want this mallet to be directly on the grid. We want this to be tight, but everything else to be off the grid. So let's go to the hi-hat before we do this. We'll go to the hi-hat. I'll go back to note mode, hi-hat. Let's change these to be a bit off of the grid, right? So we're going to change these to be halfway between, just like our mallet is right now. So these are halfway between the steps. So notice when these light up, it doesn't play until halfway between. And notice that the mallet and the drum are both playing at the same time to set the settings to be the same, right? So if we go back to instrument 1 now, again, notice that this is playing halfway between the step. We're going to go to section select, edit, clip settings, Quantize clip tight. So this is just this clip, just the mallet. We're going to leave the hi-hats off the grid, and we're going to say this mallet needs to be on the beat. So we're going to turn this up. Again, this is a percentage, so it doesn't have to be directly on the grid either, but we'll turn to 100%. Now this mallet is going to sound directly on the step. When it starts, the hi-hat's going to be off the step, so watch. So it's boom, ch, boom, right? I'm not sure what just happened there. If you're listening, one of the hi-hats is not sounding anymore. I don't know why. You hear that? The first time it sounded, boom, and then it was boom. I don't know what happened. That sounds like it's an error. I haven't experienced that before, but it should not be doing that. The first time it plays correctly. It's now playing this clip, the instrument 1, the mallet. It's playing that on the beat because we've quantized just that clip, and it's playing the hi-hat as we had it recorded in. So unless you want everything, we're going to go back to note mode. Unless you want everything to be on the grid, if you want everything on the grid, everything to be at 0, at the step when it starts, you go into Shift Quantize, turn on Quantize Master, put it up to 100%. Everything's going to be on the grid. If you're just a little sloppy, but you still want it to be a little off the grid, set this down a little bit. Listen, hear how it goes, right? But if you want certain things to be quantized and certain things not, leave Quantize Master off and then change the quantize settings for each clip. You'll go to the track you want, section select, edit the clip, clip settings, and set your Quantize C type, Quantize clip tightness. That's what you're going to set to make a specific track on. If you want just the kit track to be on the grid and everything else not, this is how you would do it. And finally, again, we'll go back to note mode. If we go into Quantize mode again, Shift, section select, which is Quantize. Input Quantize is only if you want everything you're playing to be pulled to the nearest step. And this is important too. It's not the nearest step. It's the 0 of whatever step it's in. Let's look at that too before we go any farther. Let's scroll down here. We're going to turn Quantize Master to 100%. We're going to go back to hi-hat and then change these back to be 0. We're going to put this right at the step, so this is on the beat. All right. Now, this is still at 50 right now, right? If we turn Quantize Master to 100%, we've already heard this is going to bring this back to 0. It's going to bring it right back to the beginning of this step, so it will sound like it's on this step, right? Let's listen. Boom. Boom. It's directly on. But what if we change this? What if we move it up a little farther? What if we move to 99? Still, even at 99, it's at the beginning of this step. It takes whatever step it's in, no matter how far off that step you are, whatever step it's in when it's recorded, and it puts it at 0. So it doesn't bring it to the nearest step. I mean, if this is 99, it's right near this other step. It sounds like it will be coming on this step. It doesn't bring it to this next step. It leaves it in the step it's in, but brings it to 0. Okay? That's important to know, that it always brings it to 0 of the step it's in when it's recorded. Anyway, so final thought. Input Quantize is going to permanently change the file, and it's going to keep it on the grid at 0. So if you're like performing live, maybe setting up a track in front of people, and you want to make sure everything is on the grid so it stays in line, do this, but know that it's going to change. It's going to change this completely. It's going to change the steps that you recorded and make them fit on the grid. They will be at 0. You won't know what you played them as. If instead you want it to sound to be on the grid, but save what you've actually played, you can instead just set Quantize Master to 100%. And then while it's playing live, it's going to adjust those live to sound correct, but it's going to save the data you put in. Anyway, that's it. I hope that helped. I hope you learned something about how quantizing works and how the Verselab works a bit. Go out and make something interesting. I hope you have a great day. I've been Leroy. Bye, guys.